And we are going live. And anytime now. Okay, we're live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turbo Makes Games YouTube channel. Of course, we're doing a little bit of an interview today. So I have Jesse and Daniel, who are two student developers from the Netherlands, and we're going to be talking about their game. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves and let us know a little bit about your game here.
Daniel, you can go first.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Brent, and
Awesome. And then and Jesse, you're the one who reached out to me, and you're the producer on the game. Is that right?
Correct, yes. My name is Jesse Ugman, and I'm the producer at Védelem, the Horde.
Awesome. And can you say the name of the game one more time? How do you pronounce that exactly?
So I think actually our pronunciation, as we're not originally from Hungary, we're a little bit off, but we say Védelem, because I think originally you're supposed to say Védelem, the Golden Horde.
Okay.
So we're a little bit off, but we try.
Nice. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was a Dutch word or something like that.
No, it's actually originally Hungarian, and it means defense, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was wondering if there was kind of some meaning behind that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we your game is actually available now, right? As of we're recording this, it's officially released. It was kind of like in an early access phase, but it is officially released. And you did say that it's a student project, so it is completely free. Everyone can go download it and play it right now. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. We released today a few hours ago, and yeah, you can play it for free forever on Steam.
Awesome. Well, yeah, congratulations on the release. And so, yeah, we're going to be kind of talking all about it today. So I guess just kind of give some people a little introduction into the game. What is it? What are kind of the ideas and main concepts behind it?
So, Védelem, the Golden Horde is a RTS game set in the medieval century, so the 13th century to be precise. And we're focusing on the Eastern European because in that century, the empire of Genghis Khan is actually very much growing and also reached out all the way from Asia to Eastern Europe. And therefore, we picked this setting as a main setting for the game. And it's basically an active defense game where you have to build your castle from nothing all the way up to a castle that's strong enough to defend all the incoming Mongolian hordes that will be harassing your castle and trying to destroy it.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's a really cool concept for the game. I was playing a little bit of it last night. I played through the tutorial section, made it through.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, I think it's a cool game. And yeah, the reason that we're kind of talking about it on this channel today is because it was actually developed with Unity's data-oriented technology stack. Is that right?
yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. So yeah, I kind of want to talk a little bit about your experience. So Daniel, are you the kind of like head or main programmer on the team? How does the structure work, or is it you've kind of been working on some certain parts of the game, or?
Yeah, I'm the generalist programmer on the team. So yeah, I probably know the most about all of the different aspects of the game. And yeah, we started off this project. The requirements were to make a game with a lot of units. So we just started like 8 months ago. So, okay, what's the best way to achieve as many units as we possibly can? Have an epic battle. Yeah, we looked into different engines, Unreal, Unity, Godot, but yeah, in the end Unity Dots was like a brand new technology. It's pretty exciting, and yeah, we did some testing it, and we got some really good, awesome results. So yeah, we decided to go forward with that and use it.
Awesome. And so yeah, just to kind of give everyone an idea about the game, about how long have you been working on it, and how big is your team? How many people were involved in creating this game?
Yeah, we have 17 people on the team.
70, you said?
17.
Oh, 17. Okay. That's still a pretty good size, though. Nice.
Yeah. And we've been working on it for around 8 months, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, but the first 2 months, I would say, we're purely concepting, so trying stuff out,
definitely.
researching engines, yeah, and that kind of stuff. And yeah, so it's been quite a while, and I think we've made good progress so far.
That's great. Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of came up with the idea of the game before looking into, the technology of Unity's data-oriented technology stack. So like you kind of, had this vision of having many, enemies or whatever on the screen and these, you know, massive battles. And so kind of through that research, you came across Unity's data-oriented technology stack. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning of the year, we had some requirements set for a project to be like some kind of RTS game with a castle, lots of units, and set in the 13th century. And yeah, we could choose multiple projects, but yeah, we were all, I guess, RTS fans. We love strategy games, so we chose for this one.
Nice, awesome. So yeah, what are some of the games that inspired this game? So it kind of seemed like Settlers of Catan was maybe a little bit of an inspiration for this game. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit.
I saw there
we
were kind of
played.
a little bit of Settlers themes going on.
Yeah, you have like the hexagons, right? The
Yeah,
grids, which
yeah,
they
and
have
the
as
different
well.
resources. So
Yeah, we played a lot of with the team. We played a lot of Age of Vampires too, because we were all RTS fans. So we thought, okay, let's play a game, find out what's good, because that's one of the most popular RTSs, I think.
hmm
You also have Big Castle, which is also similar. You have Nordgard, also as an RTS game with the grids. Mm. But what's funny about our game, we didn't start out with grids in the beginning. That's actually something we added pretty late in the project,
okay.
because we're keep on thinking about what's the best way to make it.
Yeah, it
I think it
definitely
was.
seems like a good resource management type game, and it was kind of interesting how you have it set up. So basically, there's like, you know, the hexagon grids, and then you basically have to like take over, basically mark that one hexagon as part of your territory before you can build on it. So that's kind of a mechanic that was added a little bit into development. You're saying?
Yeah, I think it was around 4 months ago. It was the beginning stage of the project. We had the idea of there's like a hard set of a territory that you have to defend, and that's it. You cannot expand anymore, and you have to build walls on that on a border, I would say.
hmm
But yeah, and the idea was that the resource buildings would only be placeable outside of it. So that was kind of the idea at first, which worked alright. But yeah, and in a few weeks of vacation, we prototyped some hexagons so that you can actually expand your territory, because we thought it was a really cool idea. And well, it turned out actually really well. So we just incorporate it into the game.
Awesome. Cool.
Of course, we're all students, so we're all actively learning and trying stuff out. And and, that's why
Awesome.
you also chose dots, right? You want to do experiment with things.
Yeah, yeah, and I do want to ask you a little bit about kind of your experience about, you know, going to university for game development stuff, but we can talk a little bit about that later. Um, but I do kind of want to go into a little bit more of the development. So just can you just talk maybe generally? I think this might be a good place to start, about your experience using Unity's data-oriented technology stack, or just Unity in general. Like, you know, I guess what is your experience with Unity development or game development kind of going into this project, and how's it been kind of like learning, you know, getting up to the point where you're at now, I guess.
Yeah, I've actually been using Unity for quite a while now, but
Nice.
still, yeah, a lot of I've went on and off with it. Uh, for instance, when we started with this project, some things were new to me, like scripted objects. Like I touched
hmm
it a little bit, but I didn't really understand the full potential of it yet. Same with dots. I did some. I saw it online. It looked pretty cool. I did some small experience with it, but nothing professional or big or anything like that. So it was quite a learning process for me and also for the other developers. We have
Yeah.
6 developers in the team, and last block one more developer joined, so we're now at 7. And yeah, it was quite a learning experience to because it's quite different, right?
Yeah,
Most programmers have
absolutely.
some experience with Unity and game objects, and this is like you have to forget about everything, and there's a totally new way of thinking. There's been this huge hype around uh, object-oriented programming
hmm
when we started joining school, and this is kind of actually forget about that. Let's go back to data-oriented programming, which
Yeah,
it's kind of weird, but it's a good learning opportunity, I would
yeah,
say. And
absolutely. Yeah.
actually, I love the way that they or that it works. Like data-oriented programming is so might be hard to get into. I would
hmm
say it's a little bit because it's a different way of thinking, right? Instead of me thinking about a player and it does this as an object and it has to have certain functionality. I kind of have to shift away or no, actually have data, um, and I have to program around the data and systems that interact with the data. And but when you're working on a project for a longer time, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it keeps your overall structure of the program a lot simpler. So yeah, I really love that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting that you brought that up because, like, object-oriented programming, it's a very like human way about reasoning about
Yeah.
code. It just kind of like makes a lot of sense to us. We have, objects and they do things. But, when you're looking at data-oriented programming, you're really thinking about, what is the actual data? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? And, how do you think like the computer thinks, right? So yeah, that's cool that you've kind of been liking that a lot. So, and Jesse, I do have a question for you. So, I guess were there any kind of like hesitations when you guys were like researching this stuff, and they some of the programmers brought to the team, hey, there's this cool new data-oriented technology stack. Can you talk about that a little bit, like the kind of making the initial decision to go with the more like experimental type thing, like the Unity's dots?
Yeah, definitely. There was actually a lot of hesitation on that beforehand. Obviously, we knew from the brief, as Daniel mentioned earlier, that we needed a lot of units on screen at the same time, and finding an engine for that was rather difficult. Also, because of the skill set for our artists and normal designers to also work with it. Because obviously, it's not just purely a programming project. You also need all the team members
Right.
with all the skill sets to work on it. And as Daniel mentioned, like Unity really works with like how does the computer think. But we so far through our education, we're more looking at as said, the other methods. I can't recall the name right now, but on objects do stuff. And we actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but I think we went like back 3 times on the decision, like, okay, using dots, and then like a week later, the artist went, oh, but we really can't do this. Like, oh, it's so difficult, and this is not working, and quality's not going to be as great. But
Yeah.
in the end, we said, okay, obviously, otherwise we won't make the requirements for the brief, so we just have to pull through.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, our team did an amazing job together with the designers on working with the system and adapting. And I think the program is helping them as well, because that was very much a requirement for that. We literally had Discord channels set up for like help desks for our team members to ask the programmers, like, okay, something's going on, we don't know how to fix it whatsoever, like, how do we do this? And I think that cooperation within our team made this so successful as well, because without that, I don't think we would have been at the place where we are right now.
Awesome. Yeah, good to hear. And it is cool that you guys are kind of like doing this in like a school type setting where you kind of have that flexibility to be a little bit more experimental. And, this is the time where you can, test things out and learn while you're making an actual project, like on a full team of people. So kind of how's that experience been, like working on a team? Have you done other projects, I don't know, through your school where you have been working on a team maybe of this size before?
Not really this size. So basically, our education is set up in different blocks and semesters, and the third year is a full-on game project, where previous blocks would be, or previous years would be, just short projects of 8 weeks. And this was actually the first time for all of us to be on such a big team and such a long project as well. Because normally you have small phases that you go through, and now it was like, okay, everything in 1 year. So that was also quite an thing to go through with the team, because obviously it's a little bit longer now than usual, and you need to take a lot more things into account, like in terms of planning, workflows, and that kind of stuff as well.
Nice. Cool. So yeah, I think maybe we can get back to talking a little bit about the technical stuff. So I guess kind of in the early phases, what were some of the kind of like major hurdles that you had, things that you needed to come over? What are some of the kind of big problems that you discovered early on that you had to figure out?
I think for most people in the team, they were kind of new to Unity Dots, so they didn't know the right way to approach certain things. And for me, and I purely mean like structural based, like for instance, how do you communicate with things that are not supported by Dots? For instance, UI, right? Because we have UI in our game, but
of course,
how do you properly tell the UI to, okay, now the health of the unit is this amount, this float, or anything like that. How do you communicate basically between the legacy system or old Unity and Unity dots, and that was kind of a headache, I would say. And because we were just inexperienced with it yet, yeah, I know it's multiple people doing multiple approaches, and in the end we're like, okay, we're constantly learning what's the best way to do it. I think in the end we found a good approach, but instead of having a system to tell the UI, okay, this float should be this. But yeah, I would say working together with old Unity has been the hardest part, like structural based.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So kind of your solution to that was basically to do you have a system that basically goes out and speaks to the old kind of way of doing things in Unity, the game objects and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the UI doesn't manage anything by itself. It's not clever. It's like it just has certain functions, and you have a system that tells it dictates the system dictates what the UI should do or look like. Look like.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that's the approach we went with in the end.
And what are some of the ways that you kind of learned, how to do things in Unity Dots, like learned the best practices? Do you have any good, resources that you discovered along the way, or were you kind of doing a lot of learning by doing?
Yeah, well, I would say we kind of did both. We looked at a lot of YouTube tutorials. For instance, we looked at your YouTube channel. There's some awesome dot tutorials. We also looked at Code Monkeys.
Yeah, yeah, he's got
Um,
some good ones. Yeah.
yeah, it got some good ones. For instance, in a project, we also use a path finding solution because Unity doesn't have a dot path finding solution yet. So
Right.
we used the Reese navigation package
Okay.
for it, and it actually has also a quite decent example of how to use dots, how to get data, and send it to different threads, which is quite awesome. And outside of that, it was just try and error, I would say. Yeah, we had to make a game, and we had just iterate on it and find out what's the best way.
Nice. And did you use any kind of resources outside of Unity specific programming, like just kind of looking at data oriented programming in general? Like, for example, I actually just picked up a new book, I'll show it to you here, the data oriented design book. And I just started reading that, and it's been pretty good. The author comes from a game development background. So it's kind of been interesting to read through that a little bit. So have you looked into any resources outside of maybe like a Unity specific application to look at maybe some best practices for data oriented programming?
To be honest, I haven't really read any books about data-oriented programming or anything like that. Yeah, I would say this year, especially for our school, the first years were more theoretical. We had to, learn C++, those kind of things. And this year was fully practical. Like how do you get something done?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's not really been. I've not really been focused on that this year, but yeah, I would actually love to read. Get some time to maybe look back at the project. Okay, well, in hindsight, what things we could have done better? Maybe do some more research into it would be really interesting, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of coming to the end of your development cycle. So at this point, you'll probably do some kind of like post-mortem review and everything like that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And then so Jesse, how's that been? Because you're the producer on the team. So how's that been like basically communicating across, all the programmers who are kind of working with this new technology and maybe the artists and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about, kind of how that communication has been and if there's any kind of major problems that you've came into maybe because of the technology or just other things along the way? Is there anything you could speak to with that?
Yeah, so especially now with the pandemic as well going on, like normally we would be at school in game
Right.
labs as
Yeah,
we
yeah,
call them
yeah.
there, sitting together obviously. Now we had to adapt. We had to do everything over Discord, which was quite of a big change. So
Wow.
we went, we already said like at one point, okay, we went through different stages, going from okay, sometimes we're in voice channels to a point where we said, okay, we've got to be in voice channels constantly, because otherwise it's just too difficult to reach people and talk to them. And yeah, that was definitely an extra hurdle to go over, to be honest. And then at one point, obviously, luckily, I also have great leads that help me through the whole process. So I have an art lead, a programming lead, and a design lead as well that helped me with keeping everybody in touch and making sure that the communication was good. And then talking about the hurdles for the other ones is, as mentioned before, mainly skill sets, where people were like, yeah, I really don't know what's going on here or how to work with this. Are artists who didn't really know how to implement models into the engine, that kind of stuff. So yeah, and obviously that's quite of a problem, especially in the beginning. If you want to make prototypes and you want to give something a certain look to test if the artwork works, and then it's kind of like, oh shit, but I don't really know how to do that yet.
Yeah.
So that was an extra hurdle. But in communication terms, really sitting in Discord all day with everybody really helped with that. And then getting people loose a little bit, like, okay, you can join all the channels as well. Go around, ask questions, talk with each other. We really tried to, from production on, we really tried to say, like, okay, please do this as much as you can because we need to talk and have communication, because otherwise, yeah, we're not going to get anywhere.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And so I guess basically kind of the way that your team is structured. So you said you had 17 people. So it sounds like you kind of have leads for different departments, and then you basically have people kind of like working under those leads. So it's mostly kind of the leads are communicating with each other, and then that's kind of how most of the intra-team communication happens.
Yeah, partially. So we've been trying to, as producer and production section, we've been looking into different ways of how to approach team collaboration, and you have a lot of different ways of doing it. You have Agile, for example, with Scrum, but you also have Waterfall and Kanban as well. And we've been looking to take one of those as a basic, basically, and then go, okay, how are we adapting this to our team? So we ended up splitting the team up in sub-teams, saying, like, okay, we have different sections here. We have a sub-team with people that really like working on, for example, characters. So that would include character artists, but also AI programmers and gameplay designers. And then try and keep these people in touch as well, and have the leads kind of spread over these sub-teams as well, and then have lead meetings every now and then, give me updates, because obviously I can't be everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
To hear, like, okay, how's it going here? Are there any issues? And and get people talking in that sense.
Yeah, that's great. And I was just gonna say, someone Alexi actually mentioned in the chat here that he was looking at the Steam page and says the artwork looks very nice. I would totally agree. You guys have some very talented artists that you guys are working with. So is basically all the art original? So you basically have the all the 2D and 3D art and everything like that.
Yeah, most of it is original. I think we only bought one pack, but that was more for animations. So for the horses at one point, because we didn't have a animator. So we somehow needed animation, and with only, I think, 4 artists that we had, it was kind of difficult to get that. So I think that was the only thing that we bought. But besides that, all the artwork that you see in game and on our marketing and everything is all made by our artists. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up animations, because I know there was someone in the chat who had kind of mentioned that earlier, and that was one of the big things that I wanted to bring up today. So can you talk about how you implemented animations? Did you use like the dots animation, or did you kind of do like a little bit of a hybrid approach with some older Unity type animations? Can you just kind of talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we did some experiments. We looked into indeed the Unity Europe animation package, or dots animation package.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was in the beginning our biggest bottleneck. How do you get like 10K units animating on screen, and in 3D, of course. So and eventually we found I'm not sure if you've seen it, the Unite Austin 2016, I think, demo. It's a pretty cool demo. They showcase dots, and it has like thousands of units battling across a big battlefield.
Yeah.
They use actually Vertex animations, so that's kind of where we got our first idea from. And then we started implementing our own custom tools of baking Vertex animations for the units, because that was what we found the most effective way. It's a pretty old technique, but it gave us really good results. And we had one person in the beginning who was dedicated making tools for that. To bake the animations in a texture. Every vertex is like points to its own position in a texture, and then you save like a texture array for every unit. So yeah, you don't have to have different draw calls for every unit. And yeah, I was making tools, also LODs, so it would automatically generate some
Oh, nice.
LODs
Okay.
for the artist. Yeah, and it was just this one nice tool using scriptable objects to get that in there. But that was actually a pretty big hurdle in the beginning. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It sounds like did it seem kind of surprisingly complicated? I guess implementing those animations, or did you kind of have like an idea going before going into it, like, oh, this is gonna get messy?
No, I personally didn't work that much on it, but I know the
Okay.
person that worked on it. It isn't an old technique, so it has been done before, and we could do some research into that. But yeah, I know that he was busy for that for multiple months, so it was, well, yeah, it was a big task, certainly.
Good, good. And yeah, just curious, have you guys done any like stress tests of the game, like seeing how many units can basically be on the screen at some point before it starts slowing down? Like, what are kind of some of your results for the stress tests?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, if you only have add logic to the mix, I guess you could, I think you could have around 30k units,
Okay.
with
Wow.
with the more detailed meshes, with animations playing, with everything going on. It's more around 10k, and of course it depends on your PC. Like playing on a laptop or desktop will make a huge difference, but around 10k should be doable. If you want to have, if you don't want to dip around less than 30 FPS, I think 10k should be handleable.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I think 10K. That's that's pretty impressive. I know I definitely was not close to 10K units going through the tutorial level. So
Yeah.
awesome. And then so kind of going through like the kind of like the main middle phases of development. Like, what are some of the major things that you were working on throughout that?
Mm. Me personally, or in general?
Yeah, yeah. Either or.
Yeah. Some, of course, big task was so the unit AI. Like I said before, we used like the Reese navigation package for it. So, and it's actually kind of interesting how it works. So you have like one formation leader, which is an invisible entity, and then you have units on there. So if you play the game, you notice, okay, one unit is basically like 100 smaller units
Right. Right.
that you control. So how it works is the formation leader, if you send it somewhere, it will pathfind to that location, but the individual units don't pathfind because that was way too heavy,
Mm.
even with the Reese navigation package we found. So what we do, we use flocking to kind of follow the formation leader, and then also to it doesn't always do it correctly, but uh, for instance, sometimes it walks to buildings, but the walls, it will walk around walls, and there's some obstacle avoidance in there. And it was also a big part of the combat, how you use flocking in melee combat. That was the hardest one.
Yeah, yeah. No, the melee combat looked really good when you basically have, like two groups of, units going at it, and they kind of, all mix in really good, and there's, the animations of them hitting each other. I think that looks really good, and I liked how you could like, really zoom in and actually like kind of see what's going on down like on the ground floor. So that's cool that you were able to kind of get that all working nicely.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. We had to, out of the six programmers that we initially had, three were working purely on AI.
Wow.
One was working on the enemy AI, so how it would send formations towards you, towards the keep, and try to destroy you. And then two were working on one was working on flocking, and one was working on the individual unit behavior and combat and animations and those kind of things. So yeah, it was a huge workload, but I think the results are pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then, so Jesse, what was kind of like your experience going through kind of like the main core, middle phases of development? You as the producer.
Yeah, obviously you start off in the beginning part with making a prototype, and to be honest, our prototype was already rather impressive. I'd say out of 8 weeks of work, we already had some good parts in there, and then after that, it's really just taking that forward. a lot, to be honest, scoping down. So because at the beginning you're very confident, you're like, oh, we're gonna have extra commanders in there, we're gonna have siege weapons, and we're gonna have all of this, and
Yeah.
then you're a few weeks ahead and you're like, we're actually never gonna make this. Like, this is way too much. So that was really a part of production. There was combining. Finding a good workflow for the team, because this is also for me my first year as a full producer, so I also had a lot of learning to do, and so that was going through that process, and then at the same time kind of looking at the team, okay, and looking at the project itself, like, okay, how are we going, how fast are we progressing, are we going to make these things, are we not going to make these things, and how are we going to reach the end line with a good product that isn't overwhelming but also does deliver quality, because obviously quantity or quality were at one point also things that we were talking about, like, okay, what do we want to focus on, and we said at one point, okay, we really want to go for quality, give the player the best experience that we can deliver, and yeah, even if that means we need to take the siege weapons away and the commanders and everything.
Yeah,
So,
and that's kind of one of the things about like working on a game for a school project is you're actually time limited. You have a hard deadline at the end of your semester or whatever like that. You can't just like push the release date out anymore or anything like that. So you kind of mentioned that you had to like cut some features. So how early did you recognize some of those features that you had to cut? What were some of the kind of big features that you really wanted implemented in the game, but you just couldn't get in for whatever reason, and you ended up having to scrape it in the end?
siege weapons, as mentioned, was one of the big things that we tried to hold on to up until a rather late state. But at one point, we're like, okay, we're really not going to make this. Also, control groups are unfortunately something that we also did not implement.
And
So
what do you
in a
mean
lot
by
of
control groups exactly?
Yeah, so in a lot of RTSs, you see that if you select a certain unit, you can normally control 1, control 2, control 3
Oh,
them,
okay,
so
yeah.
groups out of them. You can easily say, okay, I want to have these 3 melee units with 2 archer units and 1 spearman unit, go that way, and then etc. etc.
Gotcha.
That was a big request, also from our side, but also from the community side. But unfortunately, we were not able to deliver that. We've been kind of as well dragging that with us through the whole process, but we had to scrap it in the end. So I'd say these 2 things were the biggest ones, and then some minor small things. A few buildings that we had to scrap, for example, a blacksmith for the upgrades. So previously the plan was to have a blacksmith dedicated to upgrading your units and to keep having the buildings. But in the end, we had to say, like, okay, we're not gonna be able to finish all these buildings in time, so we have to put everything on the keep and scrap the whole blacksmith ID, and then just continue like that.
Nice. Yeah. And I think none of the decisions that you made to cut features, it doesn't really like take away from the final project. I think you still have like a good cohesive game in the end. So, was it kind of difficult to make some of those decisions about cutting certain features, and maybe keeping some other ones on till you had like a cohesive game?
Yeah, ish. Not always. Like, obviously, what we also learn on the education is to search for creative solutions. So, for example, instead of saying, okay, we're going to cut the blacksmith so all the upgrades are going to be gone, we said, like, okay, we're just going to put everything on the keep, make specific buttons for it, create a UI that's clear for the player to see, okay, this is for buildings and this is for units or whatsoever, and then still have that feature, but in a more simplified version. So that is, I think, one of the main things that we've been trying to do, to just find creative solutions to give the player the same effect that a feature would have given, but then in a little bit of an easier way for us to tackle. And in that sense, I think that we didn't actually really lack any of the things that we had in mind at first, gameplay-wise. In that sense, I think we were able to keep the whole idea together and deliver the experience that we wanted to, even though we didn't have the extra visuals or nice looking things for it.
Nice, good to know. And then so as you kind of got towards like the end of development, Daniel, can you maybe talk a little bit about the technical side? What are kind of some of the things that you were working on towards the end of development? Was it mostly just kind of going through the open list of bugs and just checking things off? What things were you doing towards the end of development?
Yeah, especially the last few weeks was we have like a bugs queue with all the bugs reported that we know, and yeah, we're just grinding through that. And we were actually also plagued by a lot of crashes, like pretty close
Oh,
to release. So
wow.
that was kind of scary.
Yikes.
Yeah, and we actually pushed because the original plan was to release 1 week ago,
Oh, okay.
but we actually delayed that because there were too many crashes, and
So
we
you
just
did
needed
end up
to.
delaying it.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't push it back by
And
6 months though, so.
sorry?
No.
Said you can't push it back by 6 months though, like a lot of other
No.
game studios are seeming to do nowadays.
No, we had 1 extra week, and I was just purely focusing on fixing the crashes. And actually, a lot of the crashes was also hard outside of just communicating with non dots Unity. Yes, our major headache was the antique mem buffer,
Ah,
because we use the antique mem buffer a lot to if you want an entity to, for instance, shoot an arrow, right? You need some way to communicate from this system to that system. Oh, this unit should now shoot an arrow. Okay, well, how do we fix that? We add a component to the unit, like shoot arrow component, or yeah, something like that. And then of course every system works with filters, so you filter on
right,
certain
right.
component, and then this other system knows, actually, this unit has like the fire arrow component. I need to do something with it, and then after I'm done with it, I need to remove it. Now the cool thing about antique mem buffer, it's you can make changes to entities at the end of the frame or the beginning of the next frame,
Right.
or whenever you want.
Yeah.
So that's really nice, because if you cannot make direct changes to entities at this moment, because that means that you kind of destroy
You
threads.
could end up in a race condition, things like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, you have to create a sync point because something has changed, so everything needs to sync together for the program to continue. Which you can use the antique mem buffer to avoid that. Problem is, what happens if the unit dies? You add a component to a unit, but then it also dies for some reason. Which is you get a crash. And there can be can be so many edge cases where you think about, okay, a certain scenario where a unit dies, and maybe some other things also happen with that unit, and then certainly you have a crash. And yeah, that was a major workload actually to fix all those. One big way that we fixed a lot of them was whenever you add a component to a unit or move it, basically you have two choices, right? You can use the end simulation command buffer,
Right.
and you can use the begin simulation command buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did, we had a rule: if you want to add a component or remove it, you need to do it at the end simulation, so at the end of the frame. If you want to destroy an entity, you need to do it at the begin simulation. So
Okay.
that will mean the next frame at the beginning, it will destroy the entity. So that way, you always you first remove the components from it, and then you destroy it. If you do it the other way around, you get a crash. Yeah, those kind of things were
Yeah,
was
so
a lot of work.
that's interesting. You kind of had to like figure out the order of how, things need to happen in your game, and you're kind of able to structure your program basically around all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, order of execution was something we really had to keep in mind.
Awesome. And then kind of talking about the debugging stuff, like what were some of the tools that you had been using for debugging? Have you just mostly using the built-in Unity stuff? Kind of what was that? What did the debugging process look like?
Yeah, so you have the entity inspector, I think it's called, or the entity. It's some window where you can inspect
Yeah, the
every
entity
entity.
debugger. Yeah.
Entity debugger, where you can see every entity. Something we use mostly in the beginning to debug gameplay. But for crashes, it was actually a lot harder because, if a program crashes, you get a crash report. But sometimes we couldn't really figure out it will give us a call stack, but it will not lead to any script or code in our own program. So it was kind of hard to debug. And yeah, the way that we eventually fixed that was, which is kind of funny. So one nice thing about Dots is that the source code is a lot of it's open source, so you can download the code, you can edit it, and then even put it in your program. So for instance, you can for Dots to have to create logic, use the entities packages, right? You can grab that from the site, um, make some modifications. For instance, a modification that we made for debugging purposes was removing in builds all the asserts were being removed, which we actually didn't want to.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I just removed some code that would remove the asserts. So then we had asserts in build, which actually helped us debug a lot.
Okay.
You can also disable burst. And it's actually kind of funny. I had one day where I just said, "Okay, guys, we have a crash. We need to find it, but we don't know where it's coming from. We first need to know where it's coming from. So
Right.
please play this build, which was without any optimizations, without burst. It's all asserts in there, so a lot of unnecessary checks.
Yeah. So it's going like
And that was
one
actually
frame per second.
yes, yes. And I was basically torturing the entire team to please play this game and play this
You're like
build.
just struggle through this. I know, just
Yeah,
kind of stress test the game a little bit until you get a crash, but
yeah, yeah. Because burst also hides a lot of the call stack away. So
right,
it's
right.
unfortunate. So it's awesome for performance, but yeah, it worked eventually. We made like a custom build, and then somebody crashed, and we found the call stack, and then it was just, okay. Yes, this you add a component to something that no longer exists. So yeah, it makes a small change, and then it's fixed. And then it's just funny because the fix takes 5 minutes. You just knowing where it's coming from. That's the
Yeah.
hard part.
Nice. And I probably should have asked this a little earlier, but just real quickly, what is the version of Unity that you're using, and what is the version of like the entities packages you're using, and kind of like what other packages, I guess, besides the default, like entities, hybrid render, are you using? Like, are you using the physics packages or anything extra?
Yes, so we use currently Unity 2020.3.9.
Okay.
So we use the LTS version. When we started out, we started with 2020.1
Yeah, I was gonna say
or
I don't think the
something.
LTS version was out when you would have started.
Mm, So we actually tried upgrading it every time, and um, yeah, on a different branch to see if it worked. And upgrading was actually pretty smooth, so we just went with it as long as it worked. And we also on the latest version of entities, which is 0.17.
Nice.
Same with the hybrid renderer. Everything was on the latest version. Yeah. If for some reason things broke down and yeah, it would have taken us too long to fix it, we would have stayed on a lower version. But yeah, upgrading was pretty smooth, I would say.
Nice. And kind of, were you guys implementing some type of source control, like using GitHub or something like that, throughout this process?
Yeah, we use our school requires us to use Perforce.
Okay,
So
it's
yeah,
a
that's what we use.
industry standard application, so good that you get some experience
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, and, yeah, yeah. It's alright. Unity also has a plugin for uh, Perforce, so that's worked okay.
Okay, good to know. And then, so Daniel, what was kind of your role going towards, or sorry, Jesse, what was kind of your role going towards the end of development? You as the producer, kind of coordinating, just kind of getting all those final things squared away.
Yeah, it's really keeping a lookout, playing the build every single day, see how it goes to really monitorize that from up close and see, like, okay, day by day, how are we doing? Where are we progressing? Where are we going? But also managing the testing, because as with a 17-member team, seems rather big, but you still miss several spots within the team. So marketing, for example, was also a big thing that production had to cover. Luckily, I got some help as well with extra members on the production team. But at the same time, kind of holding both balls up in the air for marketing and also looking at the team and still listening to them, still listening to their retrospectives, hearing about, okay, what can be improved, what can be done better, what should we keep doing, and keep them happy and make sure that they keep communicating with each other, even though after that long of a period of time they kind of start doing it themselves, which was very nice as well. Basically holding those balls up and dedicating some work as well, or to other people, saying, okay, can you help me please with this, and can you help me with this, so I can have some time to look at these and these things.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like you guys have a good program over at your school there, and we can kind of maybe start to transition to talk about that a little bit. But it seems like they really take you through the full process of creating a game. It seems like like kind of you're mentioning that they have you doing marketing and things like that, so you like really get an idea of what it's like to not only develop a game but actually produce a game, bring it to market. Get a lot of people playing your game. So I thought that was one of the things that I thought was really cool. You had reached out to me, basically like kind of showing your game off, and yeah, I think that's really cool that they give you like a full kind of you get a full picture of game development.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can
Yeah.
you talk about kind of, I guess, how your university is structured, and I guess can you talk about your university just a little bit in general? Like, is it just kind of like a general university, or is it more focused on the arts and things like that?
Yeah, so our university, its full name is the Breda University of Applied Sciences.
Okay.
So there are a lot of courses within the university regarding applied sciences. So we also have, for example, leisure and events, tourism, hotel management, those kind of things.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then the game course is one of the courses there as well. And basically how that starts off is you have 3 disciplines, which are programming, which Daniel belongs to, the artists, which our team belong to, and then the design production, which was what I joined.
Oh, wow.
And in the first year, you kind of have your own paths where everybody learns specific parts that belong to their disciplines. And then I think in the last project, so the 4th semester of that year, you do a little bit of cooperation there. So you get a little bit of a taste of, okay, how is it to work with the others? Because you haven't really worked with them at all beforehand. Then year 2, you will get a few discipline-specific projects, but also at the end, like the last half year, you'll do a little bit of pre-production and then some production as well. So back then we released some games on itch.io, like some small stuff, which if we look at that back now, it's like, oh god.
Yeah, right. You just cringe.
Because yeah, obviously when you look back at all learning processes, it's like, oh, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
And then year 3 starts, and year 3, as mentioned, is like a full year going from the first phase, so concepting to pre-production to production to releasing as well. So you go through all 4 of them, and you can plan them in as you'd like. So, for example, what I did as a producer in the beginning of the year, say, like, okay, we're going to move the deadline from releasing actually in like the last week of the semester to week 4. So we have a little bit of a buffer to say, okay, if we need to delay, as we ended up doing, we have that time. So that's something that you then also look into. So luckily, our teachers give us that freedom to kind of plan your own year 3 and how you want to cover it with your team. And then after year 3, after we finish this, next year we'll start, and that will be mainly focused on industry. So a lot of us are going onto an internship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you can also even start your own company if you want with the help of school. You can continue a project if there's enough liking for it and if the team likes to, and even start making money on that if you would like. And there are exchange options, also minor options to do other studies. And then after year 4, you're basically done. And then we go into the big wide world.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool that you kind of they give you that like 4th year of where you can basically like be an intern or work on creating your own game studio. It's nice that you kind of have that flexibility to kind of be out on your own, but you're still kind of involved with the school in some sense. And I assume you would probably have to like report to your professors and things like that from time to time.
Yeah, that's you'll get 1 supervisor, I think, per student. Everybody can pick like a teacher that they want to work together with, and then you indeed send them reports every now and then on how it's going and what you're doing. And
That's great. Yeah, so I actually went to we call it college over here in the States, but university college for some type of game development. And so the way that our program was structured was a little bit different, where basically the way that everyone starts off in the first couple years is we basically take like lower level courses for all the different disciplines. So everyone takes the introduction to programming course, everyone takes some 2D art courses, 3D art courses, different animation courses. So we really get like a good idea of kind of like the low level, what's involved in the actual process of creation. So that was one of the things that I really liked about my program, is I was just like exposed to so many different disciplines. And I think that does kind of give me, a good sense of all the problems that the different disciplines have to go through. And, if I am working on a team, it makes it, a lot easier for me to understand the things that they're working on, the problems that they have, and just kind of, what is actually involved in the creation process. So did you guys have anything like that where you maybe took some courses of different disciplines to get kind of an idea of that? Or was it mostly just kind of learning that through working with people in kind of some projects like the one you're working on right now?
It was mainly through project, I'd say. We didn't really have shared courses. What we do have, like on the Friday, we do have lecture day, as we call it, where you have different courses and lectures that you can attend. And let's say like a programmer is always allowed to go to an art lecture, or designer to go anywhere. But I don't think a lot of students do that, to be honest. So most of the issues that you see for other disciplines is through projects, and not necessarily really on courses or whatsoever. Because what I think they do in our study is they really do go in specialization rather quickly, as said, like in the beginning with the 3 disciplines. And then what they do is they give you more of an insight, okay, on how big your discipline actually is. So like Daniel mentioned, for programming, that's like AI programming, general programming, I don't know. And then for design, that's, for example, UI design, UX design, level design, gameplay design. So that's kind of more of the different things that you can taste a little bit from. But it's not really interdisciplinary yet.
Nice. Yeah, I can definitely tell that you guys had some UI UX courses through there, because when I was playing through your game, I was like, man, this UI it's great. Like, there's like just the little simple little animations and everything. Like, it feels nice. I think you give the player some good information and good feedback about what's going on in the game. One of the things that I especially liked is how you had like the video tutorials section. I think the tutorial section is really great. It's just like you get just a real brief, simple explanation, of what the different concept is. You're not like overwhelming the player with like way too much information. And then you also have like the little video of it showing kind of on the screen. I think that was really well done.
Yeah, that took a few iterations to get there, obviously. But our UX designer really did a great job on that. Spent a lot of time on it, I know. But I think it ended up really, really well. We started off actually with like little kind of bigger chunks of text, but that's where testing, I think, comes in, and is really important for game design and game development. Because you would already notice that if people were playing, they would just really quickly skip through at one point.
Right.
You read 2
Right.
pages and then you're like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll just see. And you'll just go through it and then you're done. So we really looked at, okay, how are we going to allow the player to find the information that they need to easily, but not force them to be like, okay, read like this whole encyclopedia of information before you can play the game. And I think that our designer really fixed that issue perfectly
Nice.
by making the Vedelemopedia, I think that's what we call it.
Yeah. I saw that. I was looking at that. I'm like, there are a lot of letters right there, and I'm not really.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll say though, one of the things that I do really appreciate also is you have that kind of like timer about how long it is until the final wave. So I really appreciated that, just kind of like, as a player, how I know basically how long it's going to take me to play through this level. I kind of understand what that time commitment is going to be like. So I really appreciated that.
Know when you're gonna die.
Exactly. Yeah. The when I played through the tutorial level, that last wave, I thought it was gonna wipe me out, but I was able to build a couple units real quick, and then I ended up winning. So excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's exactly the feeling we want to, give the player. Like, oh, you think you're gonna die, but then you barely survive. That's
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of like playing through it. I'm like, I was doing pretty good against like the initial waves. I'm like, all right, I'm doing pretty good. I'm just kind of walking through these. And then kind of towards the end, there were, I started getting wiped out a little bit. And then, but I felt like kind of going into the last final wave, I had like a pretty good army set up. But they took out a good chunk of my units, and then I was able to, kind of build some while that last battle was happening, and ended up coming back and just, barely making it. So, good design there.
Sounds great. Yeah, that's kind of the experience that we were aiming for, to give the player the idea and a little bit of stress to be like, okay, I'm doing well, but you don't really know what's going to come, because something's going to come, And over the course of the levels, we try to implement that on different difficulties. So every player with every different kind of skill set and experience should be able to, have the experience that you just described while playing the game.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you want to aim for your player to have. You kind of want those experiences where you make them feel like, oh, they just barely made it. And you'll hear a lot of times about how game designers, they'll actually end up kind of like faking those interactions. So like for example, I know in some games they basically make it so if you were to get hit with a weapon or something like that, and it normally would have taken you out, but they just put your health to like a level of 1, so you just have 1% health, so you feel like you're just barely hanging on, so it maybe gives you a couple extra hits to barely survive. So were there any kind of things like that you implemented where you kind of maybe fake something like that a little bit to give the player a better experience, or is it all just kind of through balance that you accomplish that?
No, in the beginning we were thinking about having a more original tutorial with scripted events, like, oh, now you place a limber mill here, now you make a farm here, now certain units will arrive, right? That was the initial idea, but we found, we were pretty time bound on, okay, we don't have a lot of time. We have one designer, one programmer to work on the tutorial for 2 weeks. What can we do in a time? So, and in the end, we decided, okay, a lot of RTS players, a lot of our target audience is already kind of accustomed to RTS games. They know the basics. Okay, limber mill means wood, right? Troops, you comment them with clicking. So we said just do the tutorial is actually a normal level. It doesn't look at what the player has. It doesn't. Oh, the player has 5 units. Maybe I should only throw 6 at them. So it's just a normal level, and the only difference is that it's a lot easier, and it throws the tutorial at you. So it opens the tutorial when you start the level, so you can read through everything. But if you don't want to read, you can just close it. Try to figure it out, and if you can't figure it out for some reason, you can just open the Védelem again and look how this mechanic actually works. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I like how you kind of give the player, some of that freedom to, kind of learn on their own, and you're not forcing them to read through the tutorial section and all that.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, so Daniel, can you talk a little bit about your experience, going through the Breda University, kind of on the more programming track? What are kind of some of the courses that you were taking? Is this kind of your first experience with programming? What was your experience level? Kind of going into university?
Yeah, so I did a college before this study for 4 years as well. This study is also 4 years, and
Okay.
so I kind of had some basic knowledge about game development. Was mostly Unity and a little bit of JavaScript and those kind of things. The first year was just just theoretical. You need to learn C++. Because that's the most used language in the industry.
Yep.
So you need to work with pointers. You need to work with header files. You need to learn everything about that. And then we also learned some. Also went a little bit into graphics. So for instance, we made a ray tracer, which was pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Because that gets cool. So okay, for now we're rasterizing. This is what you're going to use, but ray tracing is the future probably. It might take a while, but it will get there somewhere eventually. So we had to make our own ray tracer, which is cool. We also did some engine programming, just you're making your own engine. Using ImGUI to make simple UI, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And that was mostly first year and the beginning of second year, and then after that period, it went a little bit less theoretical, and then it went more practical. Okay, now you work with the different disciplines to making your own engine and working on the ray tracer. It's cool and all, but now make an actual game.
Yeah, make it fun.
Make it fun. That's where we started using more Unity and Unreal to actual actually make games. And for me, I love both. Like I love um, working with custom tools, making my own engine to you learn a lot from that. And it's really interesting stuff. But then when you make a game, it's also it's super satisfying. The end results you get from it is like super satisfying. You have actually players that motivate you. And actually, I think for programmers, this project was actually perfect because we actually made a game, but we also could do some experimental stuff, right? We could use
Yeah,
Unity
yeah,
docs to
totally.
learn a cool new tool. So that was I think my favorite project of the entire university.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I would. It definitely seems like a fun project to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the custom tools. I know that's something that I kind of like making is just being able to make a nice, clean, simple window and be able to hide a lot of automation behind it. It's something, yeah, definitely very satisfying. And it's one of those things where you can kind of build some cool thing, provide it to your designers to kind of empower them to maybe get into the engine a little bit more and be able to be a little bit creative, and they don't necessarily have to go through you as the programmer to get some certain features implemented. So were there kind of any custom tooling that you made for this project specifically that you were particularly proud of?
Yeah, we used a lot of. So one problem that we had in the beginning was systems that um, you need to input data into the systems, right? Into the systems, and the
Right.
designer needs to be able to tweak how much damage does a unit, how long does it take to build a barracks, everything, right? So we use basically scripted objects for everything, and then we load those scripted objects to know, yeah, all the stats of the game basically. So, for instance, a system in our game is actually a scripted object that you add. When you start the game, it get loaded, and then all the data that's in that like scripted object, it gets passed into the system. So we know what to work with. But that was it was not really something set up because when you start this project, because when you make a system, it's just there. You can't really interact with it in the editor.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really do anything with it. So how do you uh, input some variables that the designer wants to tweak? So that's something what we made. Um, it's we made a level config tool.
Oh, cool.
So if you want to make a new level in our game, you basically add like a script object, and then you can balance everything. So for instance, um, the tiles around you and the resources, they get randomly generated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but the designer has to decide, okay, in the first ring, how many wooden tiles need to be? Tiles with wood. How many empty tiles do there need to be? So everything that you might want to balance, like starting units, starting resources, the resource generation, everything, you can just input in a script object, and then you have a new level. So that's actually what we're gonna do next week. We're gonna have like another content update with just a bunch of
Nice.
fun levels, right? We just what if you have a level with no resources? Like maybe you start off with 4,000 of everything, but there's no wood, there's no stone, nothing, and you just survive. See how long you can
Good
survive.
luck.
Yeah, it will be a cool challenge. So for next week, we're gonna want to do those kind of things and add them to the game.
Nice. Yeah. So it seems like you've been using scriptable objects for a bunch of different things. How's kind of your experience been using scriptable objects, like with Unity's data-oriented technology stack? Were there any difficulties that you had integrating those, or is it like literally just passing data in?
Yeah, it's literally passing data in. Of course, you have to kind of remember, okay, everything that is in there, it needs to be reset when you stop playing, right? Because the script object doesn't care about runtime or engine time. It's just there. It has data, and if you give it data, it will serialize it. But yeah, outside of that, just pass in data in systems, and it will run. And it was what we found the easiest way to do it.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. I think
There was
scriptable
actually
objects they definitely have some, really great applications, and they're good for, working on specific things.
yeah. What I specifically like about them is you don't have to go in the scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to go in the scene and go to an object and change a value in there. And in our case, we don't have an object. Like it's not there. Everything is generated with code. yeah, we go with pure ECS. Like we don't use hybrid or game checks or anything like that. Like, just pure ECS. And if you want to edit something, you just go into the project and edit the value, and then it's reflected in all in the entire game.
Nice. And so do you use at all like the conversion workflow, or are you basically just building all your entities from scratch?
Hmm. Um, we're mostly building our entities from scratch. There are some simple stuff like some resources that are hand placed. For instance, the starting resources, they are like game checked with a conversion script, and then it gets converted into an entity. But the majority is just generated from code.
Okay. And are you using like prefabs for things, or you're basically just kind of generating everything kind of behind the scenes?
Yeah, so in Unity, you have like in entities, you can make a prefab entity, and you can just copy that around. So,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
instance, every farm, every house first gets turned into a prefab, and then yeah, if you actually place a building, you just copy that prefab and then make an instance out of it.
Nice. And then, so kind of just talking about just developing your project as a whole, I guess, looking back at it, do you think using Unity's data-oriented technology stack was the right thing for now for this project? It seems like this is kind of a project that is definitely a learning experience for you. And, again, this is kind of the time to experiment with that sort of thing. But, what is kind of like, looking back on it, what do you think of your whole development using dots and ECS?
Yeah, well, if we didn't use Unity dots, we would have had to downscope our game a lot,
Hmm.
which yeah, it would have resulted in a different
It would have,
game.
yeah,
And
taken away from the vision of the game that you guys had. So
yeah, and in the end, an engine is there to provide you with the tools to make your vision right. So in the
totally,
end,
yeah.
it's not you, of course. So yeah, I think we made the right choice with going with Unity, and it's um, for me. I think when I look at the game, it's like a cool selling point. You have like these massive battles, and it's you have more RTSs, but something cool about our project is that you have massive battles, which is I think something cool, and also for portfolio wise, as a game developer,
Yeah,
something that we're
absolutely.
proud of,
This is
right?
a great portfolio piece.
Yeah. So yeah, we're pretty proud of that, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with using Unity and Unity dots.
Awesome. And then, Jesse, what's kind of your perspective looking back on the whole project? Is there anything that you kind of, any kind of early post-mortem thoughts on the project right now?
I think, especially regarding the dots, I think I would have done the exact same thing as what we've done now. Because,
Nice.
yeah, giving the team that experience as well to learn how to use an engine really, I think, was for a lot of developers very valuable. Not only the ones that already kind of knew Unity, but I think actually, especially the developers, and this is by the way more from an educational point of view, then to see them progressing from going like, okay, we have no clue what we're doing, into a moment where artists are implementing their own stuff or sending stuff automatically to other team members saying like, hey, okay, this needs to be put in, okay, cool, and designers already tweaking stuff, balancing, working in an engine that they previously didn't even know, and now they can just work around perfectly fine and create this the whole project. Yeah, I'm like, that's just, I think, one of the more valuable things that you could have experienced during this year, and it's probably why the teachers or the teaching staff set the education up as it is, because yeah, I think this is the exact outcome that they would like to see as well.
Nice, nice. And yeah, one thing I was kind of curious about, like, what is the role of your teachers and professors kind of going through this project? Are they basically there to kind of guide you along, kind of say you should kind of be at this point right about now? Or are they kind of just like a mentor where you meet with them every once in a while and just kind of talk about the issues you guys are having? Like, I guess kind of what's their role?
I'd say a little bit of a combination of what we get in the beginning of the year is we get the project brief for the whole year. So it says, okay, block A, block B, block C, block D, this is what you're going to do. These are going to be the deadlines. These are going to be the focuses that we want you to look at. And then through the block, basically how we work is per week we have the Monday till Thursday of project-related work. So that is just a team. You're basically working with the whole team together the whole time. And then Friday is then the lecture day. And every 2 weeks on the Tuesday we have QAs with the teaching team where we set up a presentation, show our progress, and tell them about it. Then they ask some questions. We answer some of them. And they kind of supervise that in the sense where they just keep an eye out. How's it going? And then during the Friday, we'll also have lead meetings. So that's specifically for the leads themselves, where you can sit together with all the leads of that year, all the producers, and talk with the according lecturers about how it's going, a little bit more in detail on the specific disciplinary problems that you're having. And then we also have one-on-ones with teachers, so that's more on an individual level. So we're talking about
just
how
check
you're doing,
in, how's it going,
yeah, exactly how your learning progress is, how your team is doing, if you're feeling all right, especially now with COVID. That was also a big topic. Obviously, like, okay, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you going outside enough? Because
that's
as
good.
Gamers,
Yeah,
as gamers, people be like, oh yeah, you probably won't have any issues with now sitting inside. And then we are here like, yeah, but now we're forced to sit inside, and that's a lot worse than just being able to like sit inside whenever you want. So yeah, that's kind of their role in the whole process through the year.
Yeah, that's great. It seems like you guys are definitely have a good program going on. Sounds like you have some good instructors and everything like that. So yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, and so I just kind of like to start maybe opening it up to the chat a little bit if anyone watching has kind of some questions for Jesse again, who's the producer of this game. Maybe if you have some production questions, or Daniel, who's kind of one of the programmers on the team. If you have any more technical questions, feel free to kind of start getting those queued up. But before we move on to that, I just kind of like want to talk about, I guess, where do things go from here? You kind of mentioned that you guys are going to be working on another content update. So it seems like, you guys didn't just kind of like finish the project, turn it in and then boom, end of the school year. It seems like you guys maybe still have a little bit more work on this game. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit more planned. We would have loved to have a little bit of a longer live session, but as mentioned before, we had some crashes, so we had to delay. But the plan for now is indeed to work for at least 1 more week, so that's this week. And then next week, end of next week, so Friday is our official end of the block. So that's when we deliver all our stuff to the teaching team as well. And that's also the moment where kind of our year ends. Yeah, we'll be working 1 more week now. Then we will release another patch note next week, and then that unfortunately will be it. So after that, there will be no to maybe little work on the project. Maybe some individuals that say like, okay, I still want to improve this real quick, or I want to fix something over a few days. That's still possible, but no major things after the post-release patch note, unfortunately.
Okay. And Daniel, do you have anything that you're kind of planning for this final patch here?
Yeah, well, we developers probably will continue bug fixing, fixing small issues. After the block, yeah, we'll have to see. Like, we all think it's a cool project. We're all excited about it, but unfortunately, next year we have to. Most people want to go on an internship or do actually have industry experience. So
right.
We have to see if you can fit more work into our schedule. But it will be really cool to continue working on it a little bit. But we do expect that the majority of people will move on and will go on to the next project. But I don't think it will die off after this block too. But we have to see. There's nothing that we can promise, sadly.
Yeah. Oh, and one of the things I was going to ask about your course is, are there other basically teams kind of working on games like alongside you, like they're kind of working on their own separate game projects?
Yeah. So we count. We have Arid, which is a survival game. We have Till North, which is a game with a snowmobile. You're driving through Norway. A really relaxing game.
Nice.
We have Melodramatica, which is a management game where you're managing actors. And then you have Shoot, which is a multiplayer shooter set in Mars. So those are the other pitches.
Just called Shoot. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh no, actually,
the name is
Last Resort. I'm sorry. I
Yes,
think the name is
Last
Last
Resort.
Resort.
Was
Yeah.
The
the
name is Last.
the kind of like internal name like shoot for a little while?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
For instance, our internal name was Castle.
yeah,
Okay.
And
yeah.
eventually we named it to
So,
Védelem because.
yeah.
But yeah, you are feel free to check those out. Maybe we can post some links to those as well.
Yeah, totally. Because I saw on the Steam page, it was basically like the game was like published through the university. So can people basically just find all the other games through there?
Yeah.
If
Nice.
you click on that link on the Brenner University, you'll find all the other games and also previous year's projects from our university as well. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So have you guys, it sounds like have you, like, I guess how involved have you guys been with the development process for the other teams? I know obviously you're not like working on them specifically, but have you been kind of like play testing them, giving them feedback throughout the whole time?
Yeah, we have one programmer who was in. He started out as a tech tech art outsource. So he was basically making tech art. So, for instance, one game is like a snow shader, with which if a snow mobile drives through it, it has to leave a trail.
Right.
So, for
Right.
instance, he made that, and he worked on those stuff. He's outsourcing difficult technical art tasks. Eventually, he joined our team, but yeah, that's only the last block. And yeah, we have been. Every 2 weeks, you have like a presentation where we see each other's work, each other's process, and yeah, I think the last few weeks, every project has now been released on Steam, so now we can all play it and have been giving feedback and reviewing each other and those kind of things.
Oh, that's great. Cool, cool. So yeah, it looks like we do have a question from Alexi here. Says, thanks for the interview, everyone. My small question is, do you want to go AAA or an indie studio when you graduate? And I thought this was a very fitting question that he asked because I actually did a poll on my YouTube channel. I just put it up yesterday, asking what describes your game development career goals. So the options that I had were, I went to work at a large AAA studio. I went to work on a small indie team. I want to create my own game studio. I just want to make games as a hobby, or I don't want to make games at all. And so it looks like the majority of people, 53% of the respondents said they want to create their own game studio. And second most was they want to work on a small or indie team. So what are your guys' plans? Do you guys, I guess kind of what are your goals? Do you want to work on maybe a smaller team or a AAA studio? Are you going to be kind of going indie? I guess what are your plans after graduation?
Daniel?
I think my main interest would be AA. Maybe I would like to
Nice.
work on big games. There's not indie, but in the middle ground, right? Like not AAA like Assassin's Creed or big games.
Yeah,
But
like
I wanna
there's
work
the whole like
AA.
the THQ Nordic Group. I know they recently purchased a bunch of the intellectual property from the now closed THQ. And I know they have like a bunch of studios kind of all around, and they're kind of like in that AA space where they're still kind of like working on maybe some licensed games and things like that like have a pretty good scope to them and maybe some nice budget behind them. So I think that's, a great place to work. That's kind of like an overlooked place. I think a lot of people see, either one or the other. It's either indie or AAA, but yeah, it's cool that you're looking at that kind of AA space.
Yeah, personally, I'm gonna go to Triumph Studios in the Netherlands, which
Okay.
is part of Paradox Interactive, which is also a AA studio. And yeah, I think the benefits is that you have like a stable income, right? As it's any game, the future can be kind of uncertain.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still want to. I would like to work on smaller teams, so you have more input, right? Because I also like to, do a little bit, give my input on design or give my opinion on that or on art. I also like to reach out to the other disciplines, and I feel like if you work with a smaller team, you have more input in the overall game. And
Yeah.
that's what I would like.
Yeah, totally. When you're at like a big AAA studio, everyone's really compartmentalized, and so it's really mostly at the higher level where you kind of have those inter-team interactions. So on a smaller AA team, you still kind of have that a little bit of a smaller team type feel where you can kind of chat with each other. But again, you still might have like a good budget behind your game. So yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And how about you, Jesse? Do you have any kind of plans for, I guess, the next year or post-graduation? What kinds of opportunities are you looking for?
Yeah, so I definitely see benefits in both, but I'm personally more leaning towards the AAA and a little bit more bigger companies to go. Ubisoft would for me be the ultimate
Oh, nice.
working spot to be at. I actually got in contact as well with a few developers and producers from Ubisoft via some For Honor stuff previously, and I think it would be really cool to work there, for me at least. However, I'm also slightly interested, or at least got more interested over the years in esports management, which is also a course
Okay.
at our school, which is part of leisure and event. So I'm actually going to do 1 year of that next year.
Oh, wow.
To see how that is, and if I like it. So I might end up in the esports management as well. But I'm kind of keeping my doors open to see where I want to go. But yeah, definitely something bigger personally. I think it's cool to reach out to a lot of people, and have a positive impact on as many people as possible, even though it's maybe through a small game or a cool event for like a few days. Yeah, that's where I really get excited.
Yeah, that's great. I know obviously Ubisoft has a massive presence over in Europe, and so on. A team like Ubisoft, they of course have many projects going on. So I'm sure they're very much in need of producers over there.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. And so the esports management thing, that seems really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about, what exactly that is? Is that mostly managing events or kind of what's involved in that?
Yeah, so the leisure and events course at our school is basically focusing on indeed leisure and event management. So you can do it in like for plays, you can do those festivals. But yeah, esports as well, normal sport events. So like let's say a baseball match or a soccer match, those kind of things as well. And esports is now also a course there, and you really look into how are you, again, going from scratch, how are you setting this up, what do you need, how do you start your marketing, so you get a little bit more marketing insight, because that is something that our course right now lacks a little bit, I'd say. For the production side, we didn't really have a lot of courses or whatsoever on marketing, and that is something that leisure gives a little bit more.
Okay.
So they give a little bit more insight on that, which I would really like to learn more about. Also a little bit of economics classes, that kind of stuff, to see but also very project based, by the way. So you also will start very soon to work for other companies and set up plans for them and already present stuff to give you that taste of how would this in the real world be as well. And I still have to figure out some stuff, of course, because I haven't started yet, but that's kind of the grasp that I got so far from the introduction to me.
Nice. Yeah, it's good that you kind of have interest in some of those different areas. You mentioned economics and marketing and things like that. Especially for producers, I think it's good to kind of have that like well-rounded knowledge. Even if it's not, the courses you're taking don't apply to games specifically. I mean, those concepts are going to apply to, anything, much broader. It doesn't matter what you're going into, if it's games or something else. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. And then, I was going to ask you something, but I totally forgot it. So yeah, does anyone else in the chat have any questions for these two guys before we maybe start to kind of wrap things up here? Were there any topics that you guys maybe had that maybe some interesting stories of development that we could talk about a little bit? Anything that comes to mind? Anything that we maybe didn't cover today?
I don't know if Daniel has something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of something like that. I am curious. Do you have any games yourself that you have made and published, or?
So yeah, I've kind of done games in like varying stages. I've prototyped a number of things. When I was in college, I actually I'm trying to think about the kind of order everything I did, but I created actually a mobile game. It's called Badass McLarge Huge, and it's kind of like I don't really know the best way to describe it. It's basically like an auto runner, like a 2D platformer, and so that was like a team. it was just a team of 4 people. So I was kind of like the programmer on the team, and then we had like a designer and an artist, and then an audio engineer. And then so basically, yeah, it was cool, kind of like working on that small team where everyone kind of had their own role, and obviously we were like working together very intimately on that project. And then the following year, we worked on a much bigger project where I'm trying to think about exactly how many people were in the class, but it was probably like a good 50 or 60 people maybe working on this game. So I think that was a good experience to kind of see how working on a larger scale works. So, I was kind of on the programming team. We of course had like a programming lead, and then, there were different, we have the art team and animations team and all that. And then, so yeah, the leads would kind of chat with each other, and then, we'd have, kind of internal programming meetings, and then, the different programmers would be working on their own things. So yeah, we were working on a game called Quantum Keeper Patriots of the Past. And it was just kind of like a simple little RPG type game. So I think it was pretty cool.
Cool. Did you already also were you already introduced to like production and more like planning, workflows, that kind of stuff as well during that period of time?
A little bit. So I mean, as we were kind of like working on the mobile game, that course was more geared towards, the teacher was kind of like guiding us through the whole process and everything like that. Whereas when we were working on the big production team, the instructors were mostly there kind of as like a resource. They weren't really teaching us, but they were there to, kind of address some of the questions that we had as we were going along. And again, I was just kind of like part of the programming team at that point. So I wasn't really necessarily involved in kind of the planning, the higher level planning for that project specifically.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah. And then, so it looks like Mark asks, anyone already got their internship? So it sounds like you guys were kind of talking about that. I know, Daniel, it sounds like you have something lined up already, right?
Yeah, I'm going to Triumph Studios after the summer.
Nice.
They made Age of Wonders, and which if you know that.
Okay. Is that what platforms is that? Is that a mobile game or?
It's on Steam.
Oh, okay. Age of Honors, you said?
Games on Steam. Age of Wonders, yeah.
Nice. All right.
I know that another teammate from ours is going to Sweden to.
Yeah.
Which studio was that again?
Massive.
Massive.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
Massive. We have an artist going to Massive in Sweden, and we have another programmer going to the UK to was that Gorilla? What was that? I'm not entirely sure anymore, but yeah. And then I will go on the study, but I'll have to finish my 4th year later on because kind of my game design is now pausing and then continuing later on. And I hope that I'll be able to maybe get an internship at Ubisoft then. But
nice. Nice.
Yeah, using my contacts for that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think this has been really fun. We can probably start to wrap this up now. Once again, congratulations on releasing your game, Védelem, the Golden Horde. Did I say that correctly?
That was very close, yeah.
Okay, very close. Good enough for me. So yeah, once again, I've included some links down in the description for everyone, so you can go check that out on Steam. Again, this is a student game, so it's completely free. You can go ahead, download, play it. I highly suggest you do. I think it is a really great game. I've left some links to their social media accounts down there as well, so you can go ahead and follow them. Do you guys have any personal accounts or anything else that you guys want to shout out before we wrap this up here?
Yeah, just follow us on Instagram and give us a review of Steam, if you can.
You said give a review?
Yeah, if you can give us a review on Steam, it would be really appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. I will go ahead and do that myself.
Always helps it.
Yeah. Gathering feedback is really important for the game. So yeah, I guess real quick before we wrap up, is there anything you kind of like learned through gathering feedback? either through kind of some internal play tests with your team or with some of the other development teams, or maybe some external play tests with some other people?
Yeah, I think one of the most critical feedback that we got was the difficulty of the game, which we've been playing it for almost a year, so we got good at it. And yeah, when we released the first version of early access, we only had one difficulty, I think, and that was like really hard for people. So especially like even easy mode was pretty hard. So we got a lot of feedback saying, okay, nice game, but it's just too difficult. So we toned that down, and I think also about usability and what people did and did not understand. So it helped us create the tutorial. So yeah, and yeah, this is a learning process for us. So as the more feedback that we can get, the better. We can learn from this.
Yeah, and try and take it as much from your community as you can. Like external playtesting, I think personally is like internal for us was more like, okay, we're going to test if something works or not, and if it kind of plays well. And then external is where you get the real good feedback, where it's like, okay, as Daniel mentioned, this is not clear, or this is too difficult, or this doesn't really make sense right now.
Yeah. It's like internal play testing is good for finding bugs and kind of core mechanical issues with the game, whereas external play tests, it's more actually like important things where like is it fun? What's the balance of the game like? How's the player interacting with the game? So yeah, I think that's super great advice for everyone. And I think that's a great place to wrap it up. So once again, thank you to Jesse and Daniel for coming on today. Go ahead, download their game, link in the description below, and enjoy.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Definitely stay in touch, and maybe we can kind of check back in at some point and see what you guys are up to.
That'd be cool.
Great.
Definitely. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll catch you in another one.
See ya.
See you guys.